Stemming from a period that followed the radical experimentation with which Boulez redefined serialism in the late 1950s, Eclat, like many of his later works, features serial developmental techniques applied to pre-existing fragments with tenuous links to an overarching serial array. These developmental techniques allowed Boulez to construct entire pieces from a limited amount of materials and to move away from a 12-tone conception to one that is more broadly serial. Depending on the nature of the developmental techniques that he chose to apply at any given time, Boulez's compositional process typically resulted in contrasts between passages that feature continuity and others that are purposefully discontinuous. The passage I will discuss here, which emerges after the initial flourish of the opening cadenza to Boulez's Eclat, illustrates an important harmonic principle of his musical language. Continuous passages typically feature an underlying group of common tones embellished by other notes. The effect in this case is that of a drawn-out, resonating chord. Let's listen. I will now show how a precise understanding of the compositional process elucidates this important harmonic principle. This entire passage results from serial developmental techniques applied to the registral adjacency interval series 218, read from bottom to top. Stemming from the opening chord of Boulez's unpublished piece for piano and voice, Don, this series infiltrates every aspect of the compositional process. The retrograde form of the interval series, 812, corresponding to a retrograde inversional pitch series that keeps the outer notes B3 and B-flat-4 in common with the original chord, provides two crucial components of the passage. In the first place, it generates the chord from which the passage emerges, which is prolonged and embellished throughout through a direct pitch space multiplication, from which some notes are omitted. A direct pitch space multiplication replicates the interval series of the chord below each note. Boulez's deletions yield the same product that would result from taking the top pitch interval 2 out of the chord and using it as a basis for the multiplication. Let's listen to the resulting chord. This retrograde interval series 812 also provides the frame for the passage. I illustrate this framing function through the beam notes on this example, which horizontalize the chord. The open note heads indicate the notes of the background structure, where B-flat plays the role of background structural tone. An inverse pitch multiplication generates notes that embellish each of the framing notes. An inverse pitch space multiplication replicates the retrograde interval series of a chord over each note. This, incidentally, is the original or prime registral adjacency interval series 218 from the Don chord. Please note that an inverse pitch multiplication results in the preservation of a B-flat common tone in each chord. Sketch stage 1 on the bottom staff shows how these background, middle ground, and foreground processes appear in Boulez's sketch. Note that the temporal order of the figure is slightly different from the one I adopted, which follows the registral ordering. Sketch stage 2 presents the skeleton of the passage, showing how it emerges from the sustained chord, how it temporally reorders the notes generated in the first stage of the sketch, and how it gives emphasis to the common tone B-flat-4, which Boulez flags separately. The next sketch stage sets the rhythmic organization and adds an accompanying line, the nature of which changes every time common tone B-flat, marked for emphasis, appears. This diagram clarifies the nature of the accompaniment. The registral series of the sustained chord defines the notes that appear below each note of the original line. This is notated in figured-based style as 13-11-5-3-2, with each appearance of the B-flat triggering a change in the intervals, moving gradually from 13, then 11, to 5, to 3, and finally 2. The ultimate result is that the notes of the sustained chord, held by a sostenuto pedal in the piano, appear more than other notes throughout the passage. In fact, they comprise half the notes in the passage. We can see then how this passage is an embellished prolongation of said sonority. In the final score, tenuto markings accompany each appearance of the B flat. The generative process ensures that the notes of the sustained chord infiltrate the complex texture within a completely homogeneous harmonic environment. The sostenuto pedal applied to the sustained chord emphasizes this effect. Other notes appear as local colorations, affecting its resonant qualities. Let's listen one last time.